Happy New Year! It's 2022, all is back to normal-ish, maybe not. Let's not dwell on it. It's January 2022, this is Viewed and Reviewed, a monthly show where I review everything I viewed that month, although this month does include some stuff from the back end of December. So, it's jam-packed. Let's get straight to it, shall we? With film number 1, Wrath of Man. We start this month all moody and seeking revenge in Wrath of Man. This is Guy Ritchie and Jason Statham's latest teaming up in an action-packed thriller about a revenge-seeking gangster who goes undercover to find the thieves who wronged him. This is a decent, enjoyable thriller with good action, a great score and decent visuals as well. It's a little by the books with a unique use of timelines being utilised. That's the only thing that really makes it stand out amongst the crowd of other generic revenge films. But I did like it. The action and the characters are alright as well. It does lack the charm and energy of other Guy Ritchie films, but it's not bad by any means. If you have the time, give it a chance, you might like it. Titans Season 3. From the wrong side of the law to another wrong side of the law. Only a little more good, arguably. This is Titans Season 3. This season takes the team to Gotham City for a slight adaptation of the famous Red Hood Death in the Family storyline, only without Batman. The problem is that this show is not adapting that story, it's merely a jumping off point. It's inspired by it, let's say. On top of that, the depiction of certain characters like Batman and Bruce Wayne and other Bat Family characters might irk some people who want these characters to be more heroic and good, or more in line with their comic book counterparts. Top that off if you can reach the top at this point with the fact that this is no longer about the Teen Titans, who aren't teens in this show and never have been. No, this is a Bat Family show. The Titans are barely in it, barely the focus, and when they are the focus it feels irrelevant to everything else that's going on in the show. Top it off again with the fact that about halfway through this season, things just start to drag and they get a little boring. Overall, a disappointing season. Spider-Man No Way Home. Keeping with the superheroes and crossovers, it's Spider-Man No Way Home. I have a full spoiler-filled review on my channel, so go check that out if you want more. In short, this film has a lot going on in it, and it mostly works. Its large cast of characters all get their moments, and the action is brilliant. The emotion levels are high, the pacing is fast, possibly even too fast at times, and this might just be the best Spider-Man film. Time will tell on that one. Not all the jokes land well, not all the big moments hit the mark I'd like them to have hit, but it's a good film and a great Spider-Man film. Hawkeye. Keeping with Marvel, it's time for Hawkeye. The 6-episode series focuses on the relationship between Hawkeye, a vigilante and superhero and spy who has some regrets weighing him down at Christmas, and the fun, quirky, wannabe hero Kate Bishop, played by Haley Steinfeld. This is a boots-on-the-ground superhero show. In fact, there aren't any superheroes or powers in the show, technically speaking. The action scenes are decent but not mind-blowing. There's some good creativity in there though. The pacing is pretty good and the overarching story is pretty small scale as well, and more personal and focused than most of Marvel's prior stories so far. The real shining element is the relationship at the heart of the show. The chemistry between Haley Steinfeld's Kate Bishop and Jeremy Renner's Hawkeye is great, with Haley being amazing as per usual. She's just incredibly likable in everything she does, for some bizarre reason. You wouldn't think that's possible. The show focuses on that and makes that the best part of it. This isn't a mind-blowing, earth-shattering superhero show. It's arguably not even essential to the MCU, but it's damn fun, enjoyable, and I liked it overall. Speaking of earth-shattering, and don't look up, an asteroid is heading towards Earth. The experts are panicking, the government is useless, and everyone else just doesn't care. Why am I not surprised? I like this film quite a bit. It mixes comedy and drama together, not always very well, I've got to be honest. Its tonal imbalance is one of its biggest problems. It's not always clear what should or shouldn't be funny. Its humour can be quite dark at times, often hilarious, and sometimes just a little childish and goofy. Its drama can be overly serious and too close to home for comfort, as well as absurd at times. It's a real weird mix of tones and genres in here. When these elements work, they work very well. It's a fun film with bleak undertones. The cast is incredible too, although the CGI, not so much. This won't be for everyone, but I liked it. The third season of What We Do in the Shadows is another good, funny season of TV, even if it is a slight step down from what came before it. This season sees the characters now ruling the region, arguing over how to do it, discovering the origins of energy vampires, and more. Some of the humour and jokes are becoming a little repetitive, let's say. It goes into cheesy territory a little too often as well now, but the cast are likeable, the majority of the ideas and stories are fun and interesting and entertaining, and it's still a really good show overall. Being the Ricardos, Aaron Sorkin returns to the writing and directing seat for Being the Ricardos, all about a tumultuous week for Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz, played brilliantly by Nicole Kidman and Javier Bardem, even if they look nothing like the original actors that they're meant to portray. Note, I'm a huge fan of Aaron Sorkin, particularly his writing work, so Being the Ricardos is one of the worst things he's done for a long time. It was a bit disappointing, but still very much Aaron Sorkin with a mix of energetic drama and sometimes awkward, smarmy humour. The problem is that the film is a little too long and the tone is unbalanced. Is it a comedy? Yes, but also no. Is it a drama? Yes, but also no. Had the film committed to one of these, it may have been a bit better. As it is, it's very reminiscent to Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, Sorkin's ill-fated TV show about a fictitious Saturday Night Live show. This film is about showbiz and the people in it, and the politics and issues surrounding them. Only Sorkin doesn't really know what to focus on at times. I enjoyed it as a Sorkin fan, but it's not his best work, and some people will lose interest pretty quickly. While Drugs aren't so good, Dopesick in fact pretty dope. This is a limited series with a big cast of names and faces about the opioid epidemic and the arrival of OxyContin in the American market. At first, the show is a little overwhelming. It presents multiple timelines, multiple events and stories, and it isn't immediately clear how they're interconnected. As the show progresses, this becomes much more evident and it actually works really well, increasing the drama and thrills with cliffhangers, big reveals, and so on. Dopesick is really well crafted. It has good visuals, a great cast, emotion, drama, thrills. It's a great mini-series with powerful messaging and a really interesting story. Sadly, not all of the major cast members get their fair share of attention. Rosario Dawson, for example, is often relegated to a single scene per episode, despite being a major character. But this is a minor thing in the overall scheme of things. The King's Man isn't spy or action film royalty. In fact, it's pretty generic and uninspired. This is a prequel to the Kingsman series, the one that's lacking the fun and humour of the prior films. The King's Man takes itself very seriously, with a few scenes being the exception. The action is fine, but not special. The characters are pretty one-note and unoriginal, but well acted, and the story is a fairly straightforward and traditional spy and World War story, with twists, emotion, drama and thrills you expect from such a thing. The big issue is that this film is being delayed and promoted for far too long. As such, all of the best bits have been revealed in trailers, and as someone who visits the cinema often, the trailers for this film became pretty monotonous and boring. I felt like I had seen the film already, but of course that's the pandemic's fault and not the King's Man's. Season 2 of The Witcher is a significant improvement over Season 1. The multiple timelines are gone, the main characters now get more opportunities to interact, and the story is more focused and streamlined, and as such, more entertaining. Notably, this season makes big changes from the books, not only in how it adapts certain moments and characters, but in adding huge stories and moments that aren't in the books whatsoever. The main villain and the climactic moments in the finale, for example, are not in the books or the video games either. They're well done, but some die-hard book fans might be a little disgruntled by it. One of the issues I have with the books is that the overall story isn't all that interesting, with the main bulk of the events happening away from the central characters. I also prefer the video games to the books too, so I'm a little concerned with the future of this show. But so far, I'm happy with how things are going. I'm happy with how they're adapting the books and making certain changes to add excitement and help build the drama. From a monster hunter to a monster mystery, Werewolves Within is based on the VR video game of the same name. A new ranger arrives in town, a storm traps everyone in it, and a werewolf is on the loose, only who is it? This is a comedy horror that excels at neither genre. The horror isn't scary and much of the comedy isn't funny, although it's not bad. However, the characters are fun and the pacing is brisk, so the film is still enjoyable because of this and the central mystery at the heart of it. The film shows its budget here and there, it lacks originality too, but it's well edited and well crafted, and as such, one of, if not the best video game movies so far. The 12th season of Archer is a bit of a disappointment. The last season returned the show to its spy roots, bringing it up to speed with modern tendencies and addressing long-term issues with the show and its humour. It's a shame then that this season feels like business as usual with old, tiresome jokes, a reliance on action and shock value, and very little character development. The animation and voice acting remains as good as ever, but the story is lacking. The jokes aren't good, and it feels like it's time for Archer to say goodbye. Speaking of goodbyes, this is also Jessica Walter's final performance, and the show manages to provide her and her character with some closure and a very fitting goodbye. The Matrix Resurrections. Some franchises should not be resurrected. I have very little to say about this film that's positive, except that I liked Jessica Henwick, because she's awesome, as per usual. And the final half an hour had some fun moments in there as well. Sadly, this film is just a mess. It's awful. Poor dialogue, a badly constructed story, bland action, and dull visuals. It's also really boring on top of that. There are rumours that all of this was deliberate in order to convince Warner Bros. Not to make another Matrix movie, but I'm not sure I buy that. Yeah, I did not like this whatsoever. In the 5th season of The Good Fight, the law comes home. Sort of. Mandy Patinkin joins the cast as a wannabe judge. It's a cool, fun idea, and it's the main bulk of what this season focuses on. This is The Good Fight back in form, focusing on law and legalities rather than politics, with just a little bit of politics in there for good measure. This is a show all about addressing the biggest issues and the most prominent zeitgeist moments out there today. It does it really well at times as well. Sometimes though, it overlooks certain elements for the sake of comedy and drama. The whole wannabe judge thing, for example, is never fully explored in terms of how legal it is, which is odd. But it's a good season with a lot of interesting stuff going on, great acting and more. If you like The Good Fight, you'll still like it. Maggie Gyllenhaal's The Lost Daughter is her directional debut, and it's a slow burn psychological thriller. It's shot like a home video, like the sort of film you and your family would make on holiday or on vacation if you're American. It looks good and it suits the mood, the tone and the set. The cast is also pretty great, with Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley portraying a woman at different points in her life, and they do a really good job of it. Sadly, the film is really slow and not a lot actually happens in it. It makes you think it's going in a certain direction, only it sidesteps rather than swerves. There's a lack of momentum and adrenaline in this film, so it won't be for everyone. As it is, it's okay, but it just wasn't for me. Some people will like it though. Cobra Kai never dies. Damn, this is fun, entertaining, and addictive. Probably the most fun, entertaining, and addictive show that's also, bizarrely, not great in terms of its craft. I mean, it doesn't have a good acting, it's goofy and cheesy, albeit deliberately, it lacks great visuals a lot of the times, and it sometimes seems like it was made by friends rather than a film crew. But it's still so damn good despite these flaws, and it's so fun despite all of that. It's really odd. Cobra Kai continues to expand on the Karate Kid films, making this franchise really cool and interesting. This season builds up towards a tournament. It brings back certain iconic characters from the films and prior seasons, providing more closure and more cool moments. Terry Silver is back, looking cooler than ever, and he's actually pretty good this time around. In the Karate Kid Part 3, he was way over the top and cheesy and not good at all. Here, he's more subdued and emotional with more depth. I was really surprised and impressed by his performance. If you're a fan of the Karate Kid movies, this is of course a must watch. Hell, it's probably better than most of the movies. Hell, I'm not even a fan of the movies, but I love this show. It's funny, it has good action, the characters are good, even if the acting isn't. Man, this is a cool show. The 355. Spy films. If you've seen one of them, you've seen them all. At least the 355 would have you believe in that. This film is fun and entertaining, but lacks any sort of originality. Bad guys want a device that can cause terror. A group of agents from around the world unite to stop them. It has all the spy action film tropes, all the twists, the turns, the backstabbings, and so on and so forth. The action is fine, but there's nothing outstanding about it. The locations and sets are good, but again, we've seen these places before in films like it. The directing is okay, the editing is brisk and energetic. Luckily, the cast and characters are good. I love the diversity on display. I like the focus on all-female team. That's what sets this film apart, slightly. It's just a shame that that element is the only unique element in there. If you want a full review, go check out my channel for that. Overall, I did enjoy it, but it feels more like a remake of something else, even though it's not. Toast of Tinseltown. Toast is back in Toast of Tinseltown, the continuation of Toast of London, now on BBC rather than Channel 4. Don't be fooled by the title and the change of channel though, this is very much the same show, which means it's fun, goofy, absurd, sometimes childish, and deliberately hokey and corny. I really liked it. I like anything with Matt Berry in it though, so just be aware of that. If he's not for you, this show won't be either. The sets, the props, locations and so on are deliberately bad, and it's all corny and cheesy and goofy. It's got an old, low budget 60s and 70s vibe to it. At times, I really dig it. There are some really surprising big name guest stars this season as well. Some good gags and recurring jokes, odd name characters and more. This certainly won't be for everyone, but I liked it. The Hitman's Bodyguard. This was not what I expected it to be. The Hitman's Bodyguard is an action film where a bodyguard has to transport a hitman to a court hearing so he can testify against an evil politician. The story isn't all that original. It's been told numerous times before in various styles and genres. This is also supposed to be a double act, sort of odd couple comedy. And while the two leads, Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson, work well together and have pretty good dynamic and great chemistry, the comedy and the material they're given isn't good. I expected this to be way more of a comedy than it is, so it's disappointing to find that it's actually more of a generic action film with some slight comedic moments. It's also weird that Ryan Reynolds was playing the straight man. I mean, he's had a career now of being a funny guy, but here he's the serious one and Samuel L. Jackson's the funny man. Had the roles been reversed, this would have been way more enjoyable. As it is, it's fine, but nothing special or unique. I won't be watching the sequel. The original run of Dexter did not have a good ending, and the final few seasons paled in comparison to the first few, hence the reason they brought it back as Dexter New Blood, a new season intended to give Dexter the ending it deserved. And guess what? It worked. This is a good season, and at times, great. Immediately of note is the look of the show. It's way more cinematic with good sets, lighting, use of camera, and more. It's the best looking season of Dexter by far, maybe even the best made in terms of production. Dexter is back. Michael C. Hall is great yet again in the titular role, being awkward and cheesy as he's undercover, trying to hide the fact that he's a serial killer, and then menacing and threatening when he goes all killer on people. The supporting cast is good too, with Clancy Brown now being one of the best foes for Dexter to contend with. Harrison, Dexter's son, is here too, all grown up. This is one of the more problematic parts of the show. I like the actor and the performance, but the relationship between these two feels forced and unnatural at times. They never really talk about things. There are huge questions that are never addressed between them, and ultimately a lot is just overlooked for the sake of advancing the story, making this central pivotal relationship feel forced and unnatural. The season really picks up steam in the back half with twists, turns, thrills and drama. The very last episode isn't the best, but it's decent and a pretty good way to end things. Way better than the original series finale, that's for sure. My only concern now is that it? Or will there be more? I don't think I want more. Continuing where season 1 left off, season 2 of The Great sees Catherine trying to seize power and make Russia her own. That's essentially what this entire season is about. Catherine trying to get her more progressive views in place in a stubborn, old-fashioned Russia. There's a lot of drama this season. Betrayals, murder, heartbreak, surprises, and of course, a good dose of comedy. Crude and crass comedy as well. In terms of tone and genre, it's great, no pun intended. Or maybe it was intended. Who knows, who cares. The cast, the characters, the plot, they're all very well layered and detailed and conveyed. Things really pick up in the second half of the season, and it's starting to become apparent what the overarching narrative of the show as a whole will be. Superman and Lois Season 1. I was really surprised by this. It looks and feels nothing like anything else in the Arrowverse thus far. It's way more cinematic with a film-like aspect ratio, much better cinematography, a slower, more character-focused pace to the story, and it's less of a superhero show and more of a family drama. However, it's 15 episodes long, and by the time the final few episodes comes along, things start to drag and the show falls into typical DC CW superhero fare. The final few episodes are essentially the third act of the story, which means they're more action, less story, and clear attempts to stretch things out. I liked the show quite a bit until it started to wrap things up. In terms of the action and effects, these are okay. They're clearly working on a budget. Editing disguises a lot of the limitations as well, but they do work quite well. I love the cast. Taylor Hoechlin is brilliant as Superman, and Clark Kent, being a goofy, embarrassing dad as the latter, is quite good and interesting. This isn't just another Superman story. The fact that he's older with a family is a cool spin on things. I just wish his Superman outfit had less padding. It just doesn't look right. Overall, a good show, but a disappointing final few episodes. In Licorice Pizza, a 15-year-old boy befriends a 25-year-old woman, and together they enter business, selling a variety of odd bits and bobs, and perhaps growing a more than platonic relationship. Licorice Pizza is good, but overly long. The central characters are fantastic, with both actors truly inhabiting their roles and bringing the characters to life with great personalities and quirks. It's their relationship at the centre and the heart of this film, and they really make it work well. The film has lots of comedic, light-hearted moments, some social commentary, a fun side, and more. I enjoyed it a lot, until the final act came along. The final act is a little too long, and the film becomes a little too predictable and cliché-ridden towards the end. It's not bad, just longer than needed, and disappointing when everything before it was so good. Additionally, the world building and the supporting characters are good too. I particularly like Bradley Cooper's horny film producer with anger issues. The third and final season of Afterlife is a good one, perhaps even the best of the series. This time around, Ricky Gervais and the rest of the cast are looking for partnership, wanting to find someone to spend the rest of their lives with. Afterlife has always had a good, strong, emotional message at its core, and the themes of this season are no exception. I think Ricky does a great job at selling these elements, although some of the flashback content and the dialogue is a little on the nose. The characters are likeable for the most part, and it comes to a decent end. However, the tone is a bit messy at times, the emotional story is often at odds with the crude, crass humour of the show, the sort of humour that won't appeal to everyone. There are also some side stories and supporting characters that don't always add a huge deal to the show, beyond more crude, crass humour. Pig. Nicolas Cage is back. If you thought he ever went anywhere, well, in Pig, his trusty truffle pig is stolen, so the mysterious Nicolas Cage goes on the hunt. I like this film. It's short, it's emotional, it has some good tension and thrills, and it manages to do that without the usual action beats and exciting moments. That's impressive. This is also Nicolas Cage's best performance in years. This isn't the crazy over-the-top Nick Cage, he's much more subdued and he really puts in a good job, making his character mysterious, intimidating, and emotional all at once. The problem I have with the film is that the final act kind of peters out. The momentum drops, the twist is underwhelming, and it left me feeling a little empty and unfulfilled. It's emotional, it's revealing, but I wasn't blown away by it, and as it turns out, the journey was way more interesting than the destination. But it's still a decent film. Doom Patrol Season 3 is the weirdest show on TV, and it's weirder than ever, for better and for worse. Let's address the weirdness straight away. This season often comes across as an attempt to be as weird as possible, and hoping that it works. Sometimes it does, other times it feels like the show is being weird just because it can. The writers have latched on to the reception, the fact that people liked how weird it was, and now they're just trying to do that. The cast is good again. The introduction of Michelle Gomez as Madame Rouge is great. She adds a great new dynamic to the team, and as a character whose allegiance is in question, she's really good at that. But then again, she's always good at what she does, and she always plays interesting, often villainous roles, and I don't think she gets the credit she deserves. She's probably the best thing about this season. Ultimately, it's more Doom Patrol, but the show's starting to lose me a bit. The overarching narrative is often slow and lacking momentum. The focus is often on psychology and deeper themes, and very little actually happens most of the time. I like this season, but it left me wanting more from it, and not in a good way. Guillermo del Toro's latest film, a new iteration of Nightmare Alley, is a film with elements that I love. It's arguably, in certain ways, a masterpiece. Arguably. But the film is ultimately held back in a few key ways. The visuals, the lighting, the sets, the costumes, props, and the cinematography are all fantastic. It might be one of the best looking films I've ever seen. The characters and the cast are great too, each one getting their moment to shine, their own goals and motivations, and so on. The story is also interesting, at first slowly introducing us to the world and the characters, making us wonder just what is going on. Then it turns more and more into a thriller. So, what's the problem? Two things. Mainly, the film is far too long and far too slow. It really drags in places, especially in the middle and towards the end. It starts to become very predictable as well. The length and the pacing is just not good. 45 minutes of it could have easily been trimmed off, and it would have been better and far more entertaining as a result. This is a film where, as a thriller, the film was spread out and dragged out. The length and pace of the film actually damages the whole point of it. Overall, I liked it, but I was disappointed at the same time. And that's it for January 2022, it's been a big month. If you haven't already seen it, check out Spider-Man No Way Home if you're into that sort of thing. Otherwise, I recommend watching Licorice Pizza. If you want to avoid a film, then don't go near The Matrix Resurrections. The more I think about that film, the more I dislike it. Looking for something on the smaller screen, then I recommend you watch Dopesick. It's a short 8-episode limited series of good, compelling characters and stories. If you want to avoid a certain show, I wouldn't bother with Titans, unless you've watched the prior 2 seasons and give it a go, but otherwise, why bother? And that's viewed and reviewed for the month of January 2022. I've been your host, Grant Burton. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton for all my thoughts and opinions and everything else up to date as I get them. And of course, subscribe to my channel, click the bell to be notified when I post new content, which is usually every Saturday, GMT, British Standard Time, midday. Until next time though, or until next month, thanks for watching.